Alright, so once we have one duck, then we're going to probably want to size our duck to different sizes. We're also going to want to copy the duck. We'll start with copying. A few ways to copy. One way is to take the layer in the layer panel and drag it down into the copy icon that's right next to the trash, and then let go. Now once you do that, you're not going to see a change in your document, but if you look at the layer panel, notice there are now two ducks. They just happen to be one on top of the other. So if I grab my move tool and I move, then I'll see my ducks. Another way to copy, and probably an easier way to copy, is to hold the Option key down. That's the key that's between the Command and the Control key on either side of your space bar. I would use the left hand if you're right-handed, and use the key that's on the left side of the keyboard, so you're not turning yourself into a pretzel trying to do this. But you hold Option and you use the move arrow and you just click and move, and that will copy. We need 6 ducks, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll do one more, and now I've got all my ducks. Next, I'm going to size those ducks, and I'm going to use the Free Transform command, which lives under Edit and Free Transform. There's also Regular Transform, which does things like scale and lets you rotate and flip. Free Transform lets me scale, which means make smaller or bigger, and it also lets me rotate. So it's more versatile than the straight transform in that you have to keep asking for independent movements. The shortcut is the Command T, and you're going to use that over and over and over and over again. It's a really good shortcut to learn. Once you free transform, you get a little box around your image. You also get a little option to check that you like what you've done. When you go to transform things, you always want to grab from the corner. What button do we want to hold down when we size? Did we do this yesterday? Yeah, Shift. So we're going to hold Shift and we're going to drag down. The reason to hold Shift and grab from the corner is because that way your image will not warp. Now in Keynote, you guys were just sizing things, and Keynote had a command, or it just had by default, it locked your images so that you didn't warp them. So you didn't have to do that in Keynote. But in Photoshop, you do need to hold the corner and hold Shift. That way the height and the width will scale proportionately and your images will look a whole lot better. If they warp, they're going to look bad and it will affect your grade. It also will make your work look more amateur, more like you're not quite sure what you're doing. So, just by controlling that one thing, your work can look a whole lot better. So once you get it scaled to the size that you like, you want to click either the check mark here to say, yes, I like the transformation. If you've warped it, by mistake and you want to start again, you can always click the no, I don't want to do the transformation. Another way to it's basically like clicking the check mark, is to just double click within the duck. So I'll go click, click, and then that's going to do the same thing as clicking that check mark. So I'm going to do that to all of my ducks. Now one thing I want you to watch out about is don't take a tiny image and make it big. Watch what happens. I'm going to do my shortcut of Command T on this duck, and I'm going to stretch him large. And we'll compare him to the other ducks once I do it. So it's not actually as extreme as it could have been. I should have made him smaller before I did it. But you'll notice the image loses some of its clarity when you take something that's small and you make it big. Notice the edge, and I don't know how well you guys can see this. I can see it really well on my monitor. But that edge now is kind of choppy, where this edge is nice and smooth. So that's a no, don't do that. I'm going to undo this sizing that I just did. And I can do Command Z, but actually since I moved it, I'm going to want to go to the History panel. So I'll go to History, and remember, History is really an awesome command, or an awesome little panel, because it lets you go back in time. The last thing I did is at the bottom. So as I go up, I can go and I'll go to, you know, maybe my first free transform when he was little. I don't have to throw away the old layers. It's automatically just going to jump back in time to when I first did that transformation. Alright, so I might transform the other ones. One other shortcut that's nice, in addition to shift and grabbing from the corner, if you hold option, then the image is going to size from the center inward or outward. Notice the difference. Without option, when I size it, it goes towards the left corner, so it moves a lot. With option and shift, both of them clicked, notice the duck will stay put. It just gets smaller. The little center point stays in the same place. So say you were making a donut and you had your circles really even and you needed to make the inside bigger or smaller, you'd want to hold that option button down while you sized. Now if you want to rotate the image, you can hover outside on the corner till you get the double arrows, and you could rotate. If you hold shift while you rotate, it's going to rotate in degrees. So that's kind of a nice way to do it if you want to get something, you know, a certain degree, like 90 degrees or 180, and you want it to be even. So we're just sizing our ducks down, Command T. I know a lot of you guys might already have that done, at least I saw a few of you. I'm just going to catch up. Hold on a sec. Let's see, pause. Command Shift. Okay, so we're basically just sizing down. And as the ducks are farther away, they're going to get smaller. Using overlapping is also a good way to make one thing look like it's behind another. And remember, you can readjust these ducks by dragging and dropping the layers. So as you make things and bring new copies in, they always go to the top. So if you need something to be behind, just drag it down. If you need something to be on top, drag it up. Now, the auto select here, always have that checked, and that way you don't have to keep going to the layer panel in order to adjust things. You can just click to select. So if this is off and I want to grab a different duck than I have highlighted, I have to go all the way over here and grab it. If this is on, I don't have to do that. All I have to do is click it right on the document, and that will let me move. So say I wanted this guy to be behind this one. I'm going to just select it, click on it so I know where it is, and then drag it down and drop it. So there's my way to adjust. If I want to flip a duck so he's going the opposite direction, I'm going to do that by going to Edit and Regular Transform, not free. And down here at the bottom is Flip Horizontal and Flip Vertical. So horizontal is going to flip to the right or the left. Flip vertical is going to flip upside down. Okay, so if you haven't clicked this one, strongly recommend, look up here, click that so that you get that auto select thing going. That'll make your life a whole lot easier. The next thing we're going to do is learn to cut out things, because our duck, the background was already taken off for us. We're going to be placing hats on these ducks that are in a variety of backgrounds. In some cases, the ducks are on pure white, or the hats are on pure white backgrounds. In other cases, they're on backgrounds that have shadows, that maybe are actual photographs of places. So it's going to require a few different options for how we cut them out. Alright, so now open up, click on the desktop to make it active, go to your exercise 1, 2, 3 folder, open it up, and we're going to grab the very easiest hat, which is this one. Remember, don't just double click. It's called hat, by the way, hat.jpg. Drag that little hat file into the Photoshop icon to open it in Photoshop. Remember, if your images are tabbing, you got to pull them apart, or you could always change your preference under Photoshop Preferences Interface. You want to unclick this Open Document as tabs. Alright, now I've got my hat. First step in grabbing our hat and bringing it in is to unlock the background. If the background's locked and I try to delete this white, it's going to actually just go to black because black is my background color. It'll actually give me the option if I want to choose foreground or background. But you know, white would just bring me back to where I was, and black would be even worse because the hat would get lost. So always unlock before you try to cut out. To unlock, you double click on the layer itself. Notice the lock here. If it says background and it has a lock, then you need to convert it. To convert, you just double click and you say OK. Now I can work, and I can take this hat and I can cut out the hat. Now, when you have a pure white background and no shadows, the easiest way to grab something is to use the magic wand. The magic wand is here. It's the second tool down on the left, or on the right rather, and it's underneath this quick select tool. So to get to it, hold the mouse button down until the tool options pop up, or the different tools pop up, and then just scroll down to magic wand and let go. So the magic wand looks like a little magic wand, and its magic is that it grabs color. The amount of color it grabs is controlled by this, by tolerance. The higher the number, the more shades of the color it'll grab. So if you have a high number, it's going to grab, say you had lots of shadows of grays, it probably would grab a lot of that. If you have a low number, it's going to grab fewer colors. Because we're working with white, it doesn't really matter, but if we were working with something else, we might adjust this up or down depending on, you know, the results we get. So let's just go ahead and keep it where it is for now on the default 32, and click with the magic wand on the white part of the background on the hat. When you do that, you'll see a little selection marquee that pops up, and it's kind of moving. Another name for that is called the marching ants, because it kind of looks like those. So what that's showing now is that the white background is selected. And we're going to push delete, which is on our keyboard. It's in the upper right-ish corner on the main part of the keyboard where all the letters are, not over on the part where the numbers are. But just click delete. So I've gotten rid of the background. I know that because I'm seeing the transparent checkerboard. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to grab my move tool, and I'm going to click within the hat, and I'm going to drag and drop. Now notice if your hat is behind the ducks you want to use, you know, like this. Remember, in your layer panel you can adjust. So I'm going to pull the hat up so that it is on top. And then I'm going to use my edit, transform, or free transform, Command T, okay, long ways this, or Command T, and I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to make that hat smaller. When I like what it's doing, I'll double click. Okay, so I'm going to show the hat one more time. So I'm going to close it. I'm going to open the hat by dragging it into the Photoshop icon. Here it is. I'm going to unlock that hat by double clicking and saying OK. I'm going to hold down and grab the magic wand tool, and then I'm going to click on the white background of my hat. Then I'm going to hit delete. Alright, now before I move the hat, right now the background is selected. I need to deselect, and that is here. Select. I don't think I showed you that last time. Select, deselect. I have to watch myself because I'm so used to doing things automatically. Sometimes I'll just do them without realizing. So deselect, the command, the shortcut is Command D. And I think of the two shortcuts, the most important two to learn are Command T for free transform and Command D for deselect. Now grab your move arrow. Anytime you want to move, you always have to be on this tool. Click, pull. Then you'll have your hat. Now, the next thing we're going to do is use all of these different hats. There's Snow Hat, there's Aretha Franklin's hat, there's these hats, this hat. We're going to use all of them. Each duck is going to have a different hat. And each hat is going to require possibly different techniques to cut out. First, let's do hat number 2, this one. It's a little derby hat. So we're going to drag it into Photoshop to open it. We're going to unlock the background by double-clicking and saying OK. Now, I could use the magic wand on this, but notice there's a little shadow under the brim, so the magic wand wouldn't get that. So the hat wouldn't look very good if I used that. Instead, I'm going to use the tool right above it, the Quick Select tool. So hold down, and we're going to change back to Quick Select. This time, instead of grabbing the background, we're going to grab the hat. And to do it, with Quick Select, it lets you paint the selection, and it tries to grab the edges. It's basically using a brush to select, and the brush control to make big and small is here. So I can drag this size up to make the brush bigger. I can also switch it from minus selection to plus selection, so I can make that grab more or less. And let me kind of show you what I mean by that. Now, as I'm painting, it's going to grab. And notice really quickly it grabbed the edge really nicely. If I messed up a little and grabbed too much, I would switch into minus, and then I would pop it back by clicking that back. Or you could always just deselect, and the shortcut is Command D, or that would be Select, Deselect, and try it again. Be sure you go to plus though and not minus. So you want to be plussing to grab it. Now you can adjust the brush size, and the idea when you grab it is you don't ever want to grab the background with the white circle. But if you need the circle to be littler in places, you can do that by adjusting it here under size, or the shortcut is to use the bracket keys. And the right bracket on your keyboard makes the brush bigger. The left bracket makes the brush smaller. So that's a really handy one to know. Alright, once you have it selected, so you've got your marching ants around it, or the selection marquee, you click back into the Move tool, and you drag and drop. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to size that down using my Command T. Or, the long way, Edit, Free Transform. I'm always going to remember, I'm going to hold that magic key when I'm free transforming. What key do I push?
Shift.
Shift, yes. That way the sizing is proportional, so you don't warp your images. If you want to rotate, you can just hover outside the outside corner of your image when you're in free transform, and then you can kind of pull it and you can rotate. If the hat is behind the duck, remember right through here you would adjust it. So, you know, mine is good right now, but say for instance my duck was on top, I'm just going to drag the hat up And remember, any new artwork that you bring in or that you copy, it always goes to the top of the stack. Think of your layers like layers of transparent sheets of plastic with art on them, and they stack upwards. Remember, your history panel does the opposite. As you do each thing, it moves downward. Do is the hats one, and it's kind of out of order, I guess, but this is a double hat file. So open it in Photoshop. And we're gonna quick select these guys again. We're not using the magic wand. Magic wand has there's too many shades of gray here. So quick select is gonna be faster. And with that, remember, you can adjust your brush using the left and right bracket if you want to. You want to be sure that you're on plus and not minus. And you're basically just going to grab the hat. If you grab too much, remember, you switch to minus and you nudge it back. Then move arrow, click, pull. Size it down, Command T, hold Shift, double click within the hat, and then we're going to do the next hat. So we do need to deselect since this one is selected right now. So select, deselect, or Command D, and now I'm going to go back with that, quick select again. I'm going to be sure I'm not on minus, I need to be on plus. I could adjust my size of my brush, remember, by using my left and right bracket key. And I'm just going to grab that hat, which as long as the image has good edges, this works. It doesn't, say you have a black hat on a dark background and the edge is kind of in shadow, that wouldn't work so well. So in that instance, you would probably end up using your lasso tools to select. Now I'm going to go with my move tool, I'm going to drag and drop. And then to size down, Command T, grab from the corner. Or I could Option Shift if I just want it to stay put, but to just size from the center inward or outward, depending on which direction I'm going. Click the check mark or double click to complete the transformation. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need one more duck, so I'm going to Option Drag to make another duck. And I probably will adjust these little guys. I'll show that later. So let's go ahead and grab Snow Hat next. I'm going to open it in Photoshop. I'm going to unlock it. Now I could quick select this hat. It's probably going to be easier to grab it all if I delete some of the background first. So after it's unlocked, I'm going to go back to Magic Wand, and I'm going to use both Magic Wand and Quick Select on this one. I'm just going to Magic Wand out those areas of gray, and I don't really care about this part, the rest of her or the background. I really only care about the area around the hat. I'm going to deselect, so select, deselect, or Command D. And then now I'm going to quick select just the hat. I'm not going to grab her. So I'll switch back to quick select. I'll go ahead and grab the hat. And here's an instance where I'm going to want to make my brush smaller. So I'll go make it nice and tiny so that I can go with this straightaway, right through that little narrow part where the tassel is. Now I have it, and notice I didn't need to worry about erasing her. I'm going to grab my move tool, I'm going to drag and drop it. And then I would Command T, size it down. And I'm probably going to want to rotate that. Or especially since this duck is flipped, I'm going to flip it. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to say Edit, Transform, flip horizontal. And that's just going to fit the duck's head a little bit better. I'm going to zoom in just to really see what that looks like. The hand tool is nice in that it lets you pull the document over. So that actually worked out pretty well. Fits the duck nicely. The shortcut for fit on screen, well, the long way actually, view, fit on screen, or Command 0. And that way it'll show me all my ducks again. So the last duck is the Aretha Franklin hat. This one. And I'm going to go ahead and open that in Photoshop. My layer's already unlocked. So to grab the Aretha Franklin hat, we could probably grab most of it with Quick Select. Let's see. And then we might just make some fine-tunings on the image after we're done with the lassos. But we'll see. Let's see how it grabs. So I'm using a little brush just so I can really get into those little corners. I'm kind of carefully painting. I'm doing my best not to get her face or any of the background. I just want the hat. Her fancy gray hat. And you know, while I'm working, I can zoom in using the navigator. I'm going to click here. If you don't see navigator, you can go to Window and open navigator. But I could zoom in a bit. And then the red square I can move. So I'm looking at it really carefully, making sure that I'm adding or subtracting from the selection as necessary. And actually I managed to get this without having to use lassos. So we'll learn how to do, the very next exercise is going to be a lot of lassoing. So we'll do that then. But that's pretty good. Now I'm going to grab the move tool. I'm going to drag and drop. And I'm going to take and transform it down. And I'm going to flip it. So edit, transform, flip horizontal. And that fits her a little better. And then I'll size it so that it fits as good as possible. And there I'm done with the hat part of this project. Now we're still not finished. We're actually going to do more. We're going to learn how to link our ducks and hats so that when we move the duck, the hat goes with it. We're also going to learn how to put the ducks in the water so that they look like they're actually swimming and not just sitting on top. And then another thing we're going to do is color correct our ducks. Right now they're really, really, really warm and they're sitting in a very cool landscape. So the ducks don't necessarily look as believable as they could. So that's going to come along in the next demo. That will be part 3 of this little exercise 1 demo series.